You guys might remember when I made the Star Trek ship in a bottle. I made this one about 4 months ago. It's the one where we got all the fractures inside the resin, and I've been thinking it's about time we gave this another go. And instead of trying to make one perfect without the fractures, I actually want to try and replicate this. I'm going to use the same species of wood, which is Australian Mallee Burl, and I'm also going to use the same process for the stand. I'm going to take this plastic drinking straw, use it as my mould and fill it with resin. There is probably one thing I'd like to change, and that's the model that we use inside. I know the first one was the Star Trek Enterprise, and I should really stick with that, but I'd just love to use something like one of these Star Wars models. I think a TIE fighter would be really cool, but to stick with the originality of the first build, I'm really going to have to choose one of these. Now, one of the main reasons for that is that you guys commented that there was probably air trapped inside the die cast. So if that is the case, we really need to stick with the same model. And I know a lot of you guys weren't happy with the version of the Enterprise that I got, but unfortunately this is all I could get from the toy shop. So I've got the Enterprise and the Vengeance, but I think I'm going to have to go with the Enterprise again. I'm worried that the Vengeance may be too dark inside, and we may not pick it up as well. I'm also going to use PVC pipe as my mould again, so the first thing I need to do is shape up my piece of burl until I've got a nice snug fit. Now that I've got my burl all shaped up, the next thing I need to do is make my stand. So I'm just going to take my plastic straw, I'm going to fold over the end and tape it up, and then pour some resin down inside, and then I'll leave that to cure. So now I'm just going to go pop this in the pressure pot. While that's in the pot curing, the next thing I'm going to do is paint my burl black. I'm just going to do that with some acrylic paint. This is the fun part. We get to paint the burl. Just not sure which colour to go with. Kind of want something that looks like outer space, maybe galaxy looking. I've used this one before. This is the bright purple, blue, green chameleon pigment. I think we'll give this one a go. The way that I'm going to apply this pigment is just by using some UV resin. This thing looks bloody unreal. Check this out. Look at that colour shift. Purple to blue looks so good. I'm going to go stick this out in the sun now for about 15 minutes. That way it'll cure the UV resin. Well, that's out in the sun curing. I'm going to start work on the model. Now, a lot of you guys suggested in the last video that it looked quite plain and boring. So I'm going to take some paint and try and give it a weathered look. You know what I've just noticed? This is actually a different model. They do look like the same ship, but when you look at the new one, you can see they've added some damage. There's some damage on top and on the side here. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some sandpaper. I'm going to rub it back in a few places, get it back to bare metal. It may even rust inside the resin. I don't even know if that's possible. And then I'm going to grab some paint and give it a weathered look. think that turned out pretty good. Definitely looks like it's seen a few battles. Now that I've got all my bits, we can start putting it together, but the first thing I need to do is glue the cap on the bottom of the pipe. I had a really good suggestion in the first video to use hot glue to glue this on, that way I could pop it straight back off, but I'm a bit worried with all the heat that's generated during the curing process, it might melt the glue and make it leak. So I'm not going to take any risks, I'm just going to use the PVC cement like last time, then I'll just sacrifice it and cut it off. Now it's time to cut away the straw and see how good our stand looks. Well, that was a bit of a pain to get out, but it looks like it turned out pretty nice. Now I'm just going to work out the position of the ship, then I'll mark it and then I'll be able to drill a hole. So it's now time to glue in the little resin rod. I'm going to do that with some 5-minute epoxy. I've also drilled a hole in the bottom of the ship. Now I didn't do that last time, but I found it was really hard because the ship kept sliding off. So this time, hopefully with that little locator, it won't move on me. Now that that's all nicely glued into place, it's time to get the resin ready. And just like the original, I'll be using art cast again, and to that I'm going to add some blue alcohol ink. So as you can see, I didn't go overboard on the ink, I just wanted a slight blue colour because I don't want to take the focus away from our nice bit of Burl and our ship. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to go pop this in the pressure pot now. I'm going to leave it in for about 6 hours. I ended up leaving this to cure overnight. Alright, what do you guys reckon? Pass or fail? I'll leave a little poll at the top of the screen here. Let me know what you guys think. I guess a fail would be that it turns out perfect, since we were trying to replicate the fractures of the first one. So let's take the lid off and see what we got. Uh-oh. Well, I didn't expect that to happen. It must have generated a lot of heat in there. It's even deformed the side of the mould here. So the next thing I'm going to do is bash it out of the mould, mount it on the lathe. We'll turn ourselves a nice little bottle, and I'll leave the reveal to the end, because I reckon you'll be pleasantly surprised. Guess we forgot to add mold release. So I've nearly finished sanding the bottle, and guess what I realised? I forgot to put my hole in the end for the cork, so I'm going to have to go throw it back on the other lathe, put my hole in. Now that I've got the bottle looking all nice and pretty, it's time to glue in my cork, and I'm going to do that with some UV resin. Well, that looks pretty nice in there, so the last thing I need to do is make my stand. Now fortunately this bottle is the same size as the previous one, so I'm just going to copy the stand off that one. Before I show you version 2, I had hundreds of Star Trek fans trying to buy this one off me. So for that reason, I'm going to list this one on eBay so you guys can own it for yourself. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check it out. Are you ready to see it? Do you think we did it again? We sure did. We hit warp speed again. Check that out. How awesome does that look? After making the first one, I thought there'd be no way that I could make that again. But I did, and this one even looks more amazing. After looking at this closely, it definitely is the resin rod that I used to keep the ship up that seems to have melted, and then under the pressure of the pot, it's just exploded everywhere. You can see here that the base of the rod is still attached to the burl, and it seems like when it got hot, the weight of the ship bent it over, and then it exploded. And check out when the burl reflects on the explosion. It makes the colours really pop. And how good does the cork look? I think having a bit of writing on there even makes it look more authentic. And it was definitely a good idea to scuff and paint the ship. It looks way better than the first one. Well, that's all for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you know any Star Trek fans that might enjoy this build, it'd really mean a lot to me if you could share this with them. And also, if you guys have any funny comments like you left on the first one, which I really enjoyed reading, please leave them again. It was awesome. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.